Hello and welcome into another edition of the best in paranormal talk radio, Beyond the Darkness. It's Friday and I'm Tim Dennison for Dave Schrader, who is back on Monday, and we'll do an all-new edition of Supernatural News and Parashare. And you know what? We're coming up on our anniversary again. Dave would have you believe it's 13 years. It's not, folks. Do the math. 2006 to 2018 is 12 years. So it'll be our 12th anniversary coming up on Monday. 12 years. That's what it is. So that's coming up on Monday. Actually, I believe Monday is Monday New Year's Eve? Let me do the math here. Let's see. 28th, 29th, 30th, 30th. Well, you know the deal. It'll be, by the time we get to the first, it'll be 12 years. I'm not so good at math. That's why I was an English major. And a radio guy. There you go. Today's episode is a good one. We know that monsters and aliens are some of our more popular shows, and some of those beasties that hide out in the woods, Chupacabra, Bigfoot, Sasquatch, and Skinwalkers. Those are the episodes that really get you guys and get you guys listening. So we saved J.C. Johnson, the Indiana Jones of the paranormal, for today. This is an episode that we recorded a few years ago, and we got J.C. right around Christmas time. And we wanted to not only ask him a few questions, but have some of our listeners call in as well and ask a few questions of JC. So we did that, and that's this episode today. So strap in and hear some of JC's real-world, first-hand accounts of Bigfoot, Sasquatch, and even Skinwalkers here on the best in paranormal talk radio. This is Beyond the Darkness.
That is spoken about only in whispers. A dark area that spawns the beginnings of urban legends. A place where anything can happen and usually does. During the light of day, it hides just outside of view. But when the sun goes down, spirits, creatures of the night, roam free, and things do go bump in the night. It is in every state and every country, and there is no escaping it, no matter how safe you feel behind your locked doors and latched windows. So we invite you to turn down the lights and turn up your radio while we join Dave Schrader and Tim Dennis, your hosts, on a journey into the darkness on the edge of town.
Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Dave Schrader, along with me, Tim Dennis. We're foregoing true crime tonight, Tim.
Yeah.
It's a day before Christmas.
Yeah.
Let's keep it upbeat.
Exactly.
Well, kind of upbeat. I mean, we're still going to talk about weird stuff.
Yeah.
Let's get to tonight's show, shall we, Tim?
Sure.
All right. We're going to be joined in a few moments by J.C. Johnson. Johnson, again, considered by some to be the Indiana Jones of Cryptozoology, founded and leads a group of dozens of enthusiastic and determined researchers focused on a variety of strange and mysterious creatures in the Four Corners area of Arizona, Colorado, New Mexico, and Utah. The group's research includes Bigfoot, giant snakes, living dinosaurs, Tim, werewolves, dragons, giant birds, pterodactyls, centaurs, Native American skinwalkers, and other cryptids frequently reported in this wild and remote region. Johnson has been a professional river and outdoor guide for more than 20 years. His experience, knowledge, attunement to nature, and undying faith make him a driving force in the field of cryptozoological and paranormal research. We're going to talk tonight about creatures, skinwalkers, and the fact that the Night Stalker may be back. J.C. Johnson, thanks again for joining us this evening.
Absolute pleasure to be here and be back again. And no, deep in my heart, I've made David the great indoor camper forever.
That I like to hear. Let me ask you this here. You had told me that you wanted to come on tonight to talk about the Night Stalker. Tell people a little bit about the Night Stalker story and what's going on. What are the updates?
Well, this goes, we'll narrate this a little bit. Most of what I get called on contact-wise, at least from the reservation, is younger people. And the younger people aren't so much involved in a lot of the elders, hocus-pocus, mumbo-jumbo. They've got weird stuff going down, weird stuff happening to them. They want some answers. So most of what we've been following up on these last few years with Crypto Four Corners has been young people contacting us via the internet or via Facebook or, YouTube, things of that nature. Anyway, we had some type of entity out there, and he resembles the creature from Jeepers Creepers. The facial patterns and everything else was something the witness identified to us. And it was really strange that in the cornfield outside of her window, we had corn being knocked down in 3 and 4 directions, and we really weren't trying to figure that out as so much as we had Chief Dan out there, our Navajo tracker, and he goes, yeah, this is where they're landing. He says they're gliders. They're jumping off the mesas up there and dropping into this field, and that's why the corn's being knocked down like this. They're just landing here. Poof! Big, heavy, 8-9 foot tall gargoyle type sort of kind of thing. And we tracked them out, and we had 2 of the little ones. They were staying in the field, and the big one, who left the big scratchy prints and so forth. And this is something available on YouTube. It's called The Night Stalker. It's on the J.C. Johnson channel, free of charge. And also we did the same program with Monsters and Mysteries in America. And they covered it pretty well, too. But kind of a freaky-deaky thing. And in Navajo lore and legend, there isn't a gargoyle night stalker type entity that's available, in books and so forth. But they've been around apparently for over the last 100 years. They've been stalking, prowling, and torturing people on the Tenay Navajo Reservation.
Why do you think that they're contained only to the reservation property?
I wouldn't say that because, once we put a video up, I get comments from around the world, and we get feedback from around the world. That's one of the reasons we share a lot of this information on YouTube, is for people to get back to us and correspond with us and share like experiences. And this is not something centered to the reservation. This is a worldwide phenomenon. But getting with people from the local Four Corners area who've had similar experiences, that's a cool thing. And then we can compare notes, basically, is what we do.
And now there is some update. The Night Stalker seems to be back and active.
I got a call fairly early this morning that there was a disturbance out at actually the Night Stalker family area. And we went out there and we did find claw marks and so forth in the ground, very similar to some of the impressions and footprints, if you will, from the first investigation. So in my opinion, something of that variety came back in. And it smacked into the house and then was out in the yard making the claw marks and so forth. But very similar, if not identical in some ways to the original cast and tracks that we had out there.
Yeah, I've got to ask, is something, I've talked to quite a few cryptozoologists in my time, and the one question I'm always curious about is you go out seeking these things. This creature, Bigfoot, the jury is still out. Is it some benevolent woodland creature that just wants to coexist and be left alone, or is it some malevolent dog-eating human chowing on creature that from time to time will steal human prey and eat it? There's it's still kind of out there about what exactly Bigfoot is and what he's doing. But this creature sounds terrifying. JC, you go out to investigate it. What is your game plan if while JC Johnson is out there, you see this thing?
We'll go out and do a video investigation.
Sure.
And a lot of times I'll take Dave Ortiz with me. He's the co-founder of Crypto Four Corners. Excuse me. We'll run 2 cameras, and we'll have a second perspective camera-wise, and interview these folks and try and get down to the nitty-gritty. Then from there, we'll go a little further. Let's go back to the Night Stalker investigation. First thing we do, video investigation, go out, talk to the people, and, we come away from the whole situation. This is legit. There's something really strange going on here with all this different phenomenon. What's going on with the young lady, her room, the wall, the outside wall, her air conditioning unit, the tracks we found, things of that nature. So we're further intrigued. The next thing I did was bring out Chief Dan, our tracker. I brought him out to that same location. He's the one that told me there were 3 of them. The 2 little ones stayed in the field. The big one walked out of the field, went up to the lady's window, harassed her, the things of that nature. The third thing I do, I've got an empath. I brought the empath out there to talk with the family and talk with the witnesses and so forth, and we go from there. The last thing I did, and I'm still in contact with the family. We visit regularly. We get together and so forth. The next thing I did, I brought, I'm not a sharer of the Catholics or Catholic faith, but I do have a priest who does love his parish and his parishioners and his people, and I brought him out to bless the family and bless the house. And that was kind of the last thing I would do openly. From there, I'm going to be in a ghillie suit, under some machinery or in a shed or something of that nature. If this continues with this type of activity, something like this is on my kill list, if I can kill it.
Well, that was the intent of my question. You're out there, and all of a sudden you turn around, JC, it's standing there 5 feet from you. What do you do?
Shoot it.
Shoot it?
Yeah.
Okay, and so you go there loaded for bear, literally ready to take down whatever you come across?
This is a situation, if you get the opportunity to watch the video investigation, if this was a person doing this to a family, a human being, this human being deserves to be whacked.
Okay.
So, with the same intent, if I would do this to a person, I'll definitely do this to an entity or a creature of that sort that's doing this heinous thing to the family. I kind of draw the line there. If I would do away with a person in the same intent, and they would also, that's where I would attack a situation like this. And, I know it's not a person. I know it's something really wicked and evil, and if I can kill it, I will try to kill it.
But are you armed when you go to these investigations?
Always. No, and
Okay.
I had a conversation with Jeffrey Gonzalez and on his show the other night. I mean, you guys out there wandering around in the woods thinking the bear's going to come up and kiss your ass, and you get to pat him on the head, you're stupid, and you deserve to be eaten. No, I'm armed everywhere I go. I've been an outdoor guide, honestly, for pretty much 30 years. I've been there, done that, got a T-shirt, bumper sticker, and a keychain, and the book writes when it comes out. So I know how animals react to us in the forest, and I've never had to kill one. That's the cool thing, but I am ready to.
And have you ever been in a situation while you're investigating something like this where you start to maybe pick up on the fact that it is close by? You start, I don't know if it's the hair on the back of the neck.
There's times, even in semi-urban areas, I want to rush the bushes and flush the Bigfoot and, watch him run away if he'll run away or tear my head off. One of the two. I mean, they always know what your limitations are in a lot of these cases and situations. They're very close by. They're watching. In a lot of cases, they've done something kind of heinous, and you're out there investigating it, and they're close by. They're right close by, or the perpetrator of a heinous crime, and it's heinous crime night, right? So,
and right, exactly. Now,
the perpetrator.
These things have
a lot of times nearby.
These things have destroyed the crops. They've been terrorizing the girl and the family. Have they moved? Did they get out of that property yet, or no?
I think the best thing they did the next year is the father didn't plant the corn near the house.
Okay.
So they didn't have a place to glide in, land, and be undercover after they landed and decide what they're going to do from there on in. So leaving the corn from growing up in that field and giving them cover was the first smart thing. The second thing is Rhonda moved to Albuquerque for the most part and would only come home on the weekends and limited activity. And they have an area where they're down on the river certain times of the year. They're crawling with Sasquatch and furry people, literally. But this is something else. This is something different. And even when the young lady contacted me, she said, we've had our Bigfoot sightings, our Bigfoot encounters. They're down here. This is something else, and I'd like you to come and look at it.
And she said there has been those other type of encounters there. Has there ever been?
No, they've had a lot of Sasquatch activity down there. I've been down there, camped down below their house, actually just for the Sasquatch activity, and I crazy, goofy nuts.
Well, you've got that Four Corners area, which seems to be pretty ripe with all types of activity. Is there any reason that you believe that area is so ripe with cryptid and paranormal activity?
I've tried to put nail it down like that. I really don't have one reason. I just don't. I do believe there's an affiliation with the furry people and Native American people, and if you go and look into some of the sightings that are out there and available, recorded, you're going to find out 90% of the sightings occur on and or near Native American reservations. And there's a lot of different reasons for that. I wouldn't expound on that too much at this point, other than on the Navajo reservation, when you see Yeto, Neto, Kagi, the different names of half of them, it's a superstitious thing, and you're not supposed to pursue it, talk about it, or look at it. So they look the other way. Now look at me. So I'm going into your shed, and I'm taking your 50-pound bag of dog food because you won't even look at me. It is kind of like that. When you've got pretty much a populace who won't respond to that kind of stimuli or talk about it or share it.
Right, they're giving,
or even get involved with it. That's probably a very convenient situation to be near these people when they're not going to respond to you.
Give you good latitude.
Whatever the hell you want to.
We were talking about the Night Stalker. Francine has a question. Has family ever figured out why this infestation happened? Was there a relative who sent a curse? Was there a cursed property? Had they done something to maybe offend the creatures in the area that they're aware of?
A lot of times I look at some of these situations, and these things that are outside people's doorways could come right in. They could rip the door off. They could lift the roof up and climb in. You've got a 9-foot-tall wolf standing outside a doorway. He could rip the door off, but he can't come in. He needs an invitation. And a lot of times folks out there, even unwarily, make an invitation to something, and when it shows up, it's not a cool thing. It's not a happy day.
Why are they able to do all of these amazing supernatural things, but then a door stops them? You have to invite the creature in. How does that occur?
And this is something time and time again. And, they don't get invited in. They get frustrated. So, in the Skinwalker genre, they go up on the people's roof and tap dance up there and run around and so forth and run around the building. Just the absolute terror aspect, because they know they can't come in. They haven't been invited. And there's a higher power in most cases protecting these people from these outside forces that want to come in and wreak havoc and destroy them. They came to kill, steal, and destroy in some cases with these dark entities.
Are there quite a few military installations around the Four Corners area?
I would give that, and we've got a lot of underground activity as far as linking up with Los Alamos, linking up for potentially Dulce, potentially linking up to Area 51, potentially linking up to Edwards Air Force Base. In fact, we've got associates who've talked to retired security guys who would get in a little tramway at, White Sands, and they would be up to Area 51 in like an hour. Okay, George, time to start the shift. We just traveled several hundred miles in an hour. We'll get back on this tramway, and we'll be back in White Sands and so forth. But, there's need to a point for national security. There's need to a point, I guess, for some of these deep underground military bunkers and complexes and so forth. And it's when you start messing with things, when you're outside of the areas of natural interest and national interest, then I've got problems with that.
I'm curious if you think, since there are UFO sightings over many different nuclear plants and facilities, there are UFO sightings and creature sightings near military installations. Do you believe that these installations and the power and the things that they're doing there bring the creatures to them and close to them? Or do you think that some of the work they're doing at these installations may, in fact, be ripping holes in the fabric of time and space, and these things may be bleeding into our reality? And we talk about all of these locations around the United States and around the world where there are these high levels of creature and UFO sightings, and a lot of them do center around nuclear power plants, around military installations. Do you think there's any chance that they're drawn to that energy, or do you think we may be causing disturbances, ripples in time and space, if you will, and letting them through into our dimension?
I think there's a potential for that, but in my opinion, we're a fallen planet. And if we do have other planets visiting us, then they're fallen also. That's something to think about.
Now, when you say fallen planet,
technology coming to this planet, I don't think the end result is a happy white picket fence and pink house scenario. It's not a good thing.
Well, what do you mean by a fallen planet? Explain that to me.
We are essentially a fallen planet. Oh my goodness, this goes back so many eons ago. But you've got a situation where you've got a special creation that fails itself in the garden, yet they want them to continue to spread the X chromosome so they don't destroy the fallen creation in the garden. They go ahead and let them go out into the world. But the world becomes fallen after that. At one point in time, this was a gigantic situation as a terrarium, if you will. Like I would have a terrarium with some scorpions and some tarantulas, maybe a couple lizards or something. And I've got the perfect light on these little creatures to keep them healthy and happy. And I've got the perfect humidity to keep these creatures healthy and happy. I've got everything pretty well perfect. You're down here as God's toys, God's playthings in a giant terrarium. At one point in time, essentially up until the time Noah goes into the ark, these people had not seen rain. There was a fine mist that came by every night. There wasn't rain and so forth. So, there's a lot of interesting things. The actual story of Noah, if you could tell the actual story of Noah, kids would line up around the block to see this movie.
Well, why is that? What specifically about the real story do you think?
Specifically, when we get back into the ancient properties of mankind and what happened to us in the rape of our race, we go back to Genesis 6, where the sons of God found the daughters of men fair and took among them all the wives they wanted. We don't hear a lot more about that in Genesis, and it does talk about the giants of that time. It does talk about the giants afterward. We've got the Hebrews coming in contact with these giants in the Promised Land. They said we're like grasshoppers in their sight. And they're supposed to go in and take out these giants and take their cities and keep moving on. They're essentially wiping out the DNA manipulations that happened with the Watchers. And the Watchers were the most trusted of God. There was 250 of them, and they've got names. And they're listed in the heinous deeds they did, since it's heinous crime night. The heinous deeds they did are listed in the book of Enoch, and they're listed by name, what they did to us as a creation. Basically, they made a pact among themselves to take on wives of this new creation, and they got away with it for a while. And once they were caught, all hell ensues, typically. And the end result is the flood. And the flood was supposed to wipe out this genetic manipulation that had happened to us and the animals, too, because they went on in the book of Joshua and the book of Jubilees. They went on to sin against creation, further against fish and fowl and other things. They combined their DNA with them. And, much like the scene of Star Wars, the bar scene in the original Star Wars, that's probably what it looked like if you went into a bar around Noah's time. You've got all these freaky-deaky things that are genetic manipulations and things of that nature going on.
Now, and again, that's where it sounds so strange, but you've got the idea that there are all of these different races and creatures. So you believe that these creatures, do you believe that they were alien in nature, or that they were already part of the landscape and part of what was already living here on Earth prior?
Well, let's imagine, we've got the Watchers. The Watchers are the most trusted of God. God says, you know what, keep an eye on my creation. I've got other worlds to create. I've kind of got a full plate now. Guys, keep an eye on this stuff. And they do this heinous deed. They make this pact among themselves to take on wives. And the offspring they had were horrific, freakish giants and all kinds of other weird stuff that, when they combined the angelic DNA with our human DNA, they got these crazy, goofy, freakish offspring. And we were ruled by the giants for a very long time, if you will, the Nephilim, the sons of the fallen. This is the real history of this earth that's been covered up for eons. That's been covered up by Smithsonian Institution. Every time there's a giant skeleton discovered anywhere in ancient history or, as long as Smithsonian has been around. They show up and they take the skeleton. They pay off Farmer Jones, Hey, here's $100 for your 12-foot skeleton. Thank you, Farmer Jones. We're going to go throw it in the ocean. Or we're going to go put it down in the basement. The original CIA, the Smithsonian, whatever doesn't fit into their character as far as a worldview, they've been getting rid of for many years, and other entities.
You make them sound like this shadow corporation that's able to do it. You would think
they are a shadow corporation. When Smithsonian's finally died out and everything else died out, all the contributors and benefactors, guess what? Smithsonian becomes property of the United States government. And it is at this point, to this day, it is property of the United States government. It's not the Catholics in there. It's not the Mormons. It's the United States government. So we've got a shadow entity that has been working in antiquity. Some of the stuff we've looked into, we've got another YouTube video, Expedition to Sipapapu, Grand Canyon's Lost City. And this is an underground facility that G.E. Kincaid, kind of a headhunter for Smithsonian Institution back in 1909, is doing a solo trip down the Grand Canyon. He's looking for old silver mines, old gold mines that the Spaniards had supposedly back down the Grand Canyon. He sees some tailings coming down, and with great difficulty, he climbs about 1,600 feet above the canyon floor and enters through the doorway. Once inside, he finds Egyptian statues, a Buddha-type statue, Egyptian hieroglyphics, a multicultural center, and it's like spokes inside a wheel, and it's all tunnels, and there's a dining hall. There's all kinds of interesting things that he's finding there. And this is in 1909, the Phoenix Gazette.
Okay.
First breaks with the story. Later, we find out that Smithsonian partnered with the Knights of the Grand Council. They built a tramway up to the entrance of this underground facility and hauled away everything, including the last grain of rice. We don't hear much more about G.E. Kincaid. We run into him in the 1930s, and he still has a few of the little artifacts they let him keep from that facility, and they're Egyptian in nature. So we got an advanced race of people inside the Grand Canyon in an underground facility, tens of thousands of years old. And Smithsonian takes care of that too. Gone. Without a trace. We know, we've been there, we know within 100 yards where the entryway is, and I guarantee you when they were done absconding everything of value or anything that would trace anything back to their narrative other than their narrative, they blew the door away.
Well, the Catholic Church itself is a very powerful and political entity. It would only strengthen the story of the church and the Bible if they were able to obtain one of these skeletons and provide proof that, look, the Nephilim, the giants, these things actually existed, and we have physical proof. Anything that can back up the claims of the Bible, to me, seems like it would be in the best interest of the church entity to get a hold of it and release that. How are they keeping the lid on that at the Vatican?
That is a bit of a quandary there, too, because I think in that, but, once again, I don't want to get into that kind of discussion.
Sure.
This is everything I'm involved in, eventually, and the eventuality of everything that I am involved in is indeed biblical in nature, whether it's referred to in some point in time in Scripture and or something that happened in our past that is recorded. And if it's not in the canon of Scripture, then for sure it's in the book of Enoch, then for sure it's in the book of Jasher, it's in the book of Jubilees, what happened to us. And that's what they've been trying to keep a lid on. If David Schrader and J.C. Johnson did some heinous crimes back in the past, back in the antiquities, and it was recorded, and our names were recorded, and what we did when we had the opportunity to make that book go away, wouldn't we do that? We probably would. And that's what happens with the book of Enoch. You've got all this heinous acts recorded, and the players, Azazel and all these other angels, would love to see that book go away, and they did a really good job of it for quite a long time. But it resurfaces. We've got Ethiopian copies of the book of Enoch that are thousands of years old that we're getting most of the transcripts from.
Well, and I mean, to me, that's fascinating that there are so many different powers at play here, and the church still being a powerful player itself in the world and was for many years. It's so intriguing to me that they wouldn't have been able to lock up some kind of proof. It's kind of like the whole Noah's Ark story. I mean, they believe they found the Ark, but they keep people from going up on the mountain. As a matter of fact, if I understand it correctly, there's laws. You're not allowed up there anymore. They keep you from that specific location, but they won't really give any indication as to why you're not allowed up there. And
looking to the archaeology of that whole situation, it's very intriguing. And you've got the wood that's essentially become fossilized and rock-like and so forth, but they're finding nails, and they're finding situations where you've even got a type of plywood with a glue, with the wood factors of the boat being applied and so forth. And it's all very fascinating. Is it Noah's Ark? Do I have definite proof? No, but I do find it very, very fascinating. And it does have the same dimensions of what we're talking about as far as biblical reference to the size of the ark, because we've got the size of the ark and the cubits and everything else. And it does correspond with what they found up there. Very much so.
Our guest for the evening is J.C. Johnson. We'll continue talking about strange creatures. I'd like to delve into the world of skinwalkers and understand more about the Native American culture and the characters that are seen there and that we communicate with or seem to be making themselves known. We'll talk with our guest and researcher, cryptozoologist, about that and so much more. We'll be back with more J.C. Johnson, more cryptozoological stories right after this.
Beyond the darkness.
Darkness Radio is underway. I'm your host, Dave Schrader, along with me, Tim Dennis. We've got much more to cover this evening as we look into the world of strange cryptids. The Indiana Jones of the cryptozoological world will be back with us. We've got J.C. Johnson for the rest of the show. J.C., in all of your years of seeking the field of cryptozoological beasts, have you ever had a chance to see a flying reindeer?
No. In fact, I'm thinking about the potential of flying venison being very tasty. Would it be a double-aught buck? Would it be a howitzer? An air missile? I'm thinking about all these things.
Surface-to-air missile? There'll be nothing left to nibble on.
At least I tried.
That's true. Well, we're back. We do have a call from David Fritz in Massachusetts. David, thank you for your patience. What's your question for JC?
Yeah, hi, JC. How you doing?
How you doing, David? Good friend of mine.
Good. What is your how do you think of the crypto thing, like the gargoyles and all these weird creatures coming up? I mean, mythical creatures, and plus compared to the crypto, the real creatures. I mean, what can be confirmed of extinct things now showing up that were once extinct, and everybody thought they were extinct, but now they're here for some reason. Is there a correlation between the two?
Potentially, in some cases, with some of these critters and some of the entities out there, it's as if everything's getting ready for a particular major event that's going to transpire or take place. And you potentially, I think you would agree with me to a point that in some cases, some of these things, it's as if the gates of hell have been let loose. It's really, I mean...
no, to me it just seems like all these
getting ready for a major event. I'm sorry, Dave, go ahead.
To me, it just seems like all these reports are like showing up intensified for some reason. It's just like you had reports in the past, but not as intensified as they are now.
Oh, definitely, I agree. I totally agree with the high strange weirdness that's going on. Very bizarre. Very bizarre.
David, thank you for calling in and listening to the show this evening. Is there, when you look at these creature sightings that are so populous, I mean, has there ever been any sightings of of these creatures side by side, Bigfoot with a Skinwalker, or the Night Stalker, or any of these other creatures that are seen together at the same point, or is it always, do they seem very lone wolf in their ways?
Well, I think I saw a picture of Bigfoot riding the Loch Ness Monster, but I'm pretty sure it's Photoshop.
You think there could be a chance of that, huh?
I haven't got the multiplicity of different creatures showing up with each other. So, it'd be like, Bigfoot showing up with a gray alien or something. We've got reports like that. We've got reports of the furry people being in the areas of UFO sightings. We've got reports of the furry people being present with actual alien abductions. We've even got stuff, George Knapp on the Skinwalker, where there's a craft that comes down, the door opens up, and there's a big furry guy driving the craft. And,
right.
It just makes you scratch your head and wonder, are all these things connected? And probably in some ways they are.
All right, we've got another call. Vic from Glendale, Arizona. Welcome to the show.
Thanks. Hey, JC, this is Vic with Bigfoot Weekly.
How you doing, Vic?
I'm doing well, sir. Just have a question for you. I travel through Arizona and through the reservation sometimes at night. I'm usually not out and about at night on the reservation, but I had a question. If you ever encounter a Skinwalker, what's the best way to defend yourself against something like that? What's the best thing to do?
It would come down to what form they're in, because we've got a situation, and I do believe when they're first apprenticing to emulate the animal that they want to be, that they want to shape into, shift into, they wear the hide for a while. So when they're wearing the hide, don't worry about them. You can get out and kick their ass. When they finally transform, and I do believe there is an actual physical transformation that happens with this, when they do physically transform into this animal, I don't know what your protections are other than maybe some hot lead. And
okay.
when you get into the spiritual realm, when they travel invisible and so forth, I think you're going to need the help of a higher power to help you in those circumstances. And I would highly recommend you just stay off the reservation, especially at night. If you have no business there, don't be there.
Now, why is that? The Native American people seem to be a peaceful people that just want to, have this communication with the land and with their spirit guides and with their totems and the animals. And it seems like a very symbiotic relationship they seek. But it seems, as we've heard from some other speakers throughout the years and articles that we've read, that the Native American culture at night seems a very creepy, dark place, as though that's when they unleash their inner animals to run free and do quite a bit of damage.
Absolutely. We go back to before the incarceration of the Navajo at Fort Sumner. We've got the Skinwalker, the Anublushi, and so forth, being something that is helpful to the Dene, the Navajo people. They send him out in a wolf form or a coyote form or an elk form, and they'll go out and spy on the conquistadors in the 1700s and 1500s. They'll go out and spy on them and find out what their plans are for the next day, when they're going to attack or what they're going to do. And they'll send them out in the animal form to spy on the cavalry, and then come back and report in what their activities are going to be the next day. And before incarceration, it seems Skinwalker worked with the Dene, the Navajo people. It's after the incarceration, when they come home, the ones who still know how to do it use it for evil.
So when they used it for evil, do you feel that they were tainted because of the times and the way they were treated, that kind of unleashed the dark side of the beast that was within them?
I think unleashing the dark side of a culture that's been corrupted by incarceration, they learned to love the white man's coffee, they learned to love the white man's flour. The blue velvet Navajo traditional dress that they have is it's modern. After the cavalry uniforms, that's your blue velvet, and it was those influences that stick with the culture until today. I think the number one killer of the Navajo people outside of alcohol and tobacco abuse is probably bluebird flour.
Vic, now you said that you've been on
the terrible diet that they learned from the soldiers in incarceration. They really learned a terrible diet from the white man.
Vic, let me hold on one second, JC. Vic, you said that you've been on the reservations at night. Is that right?
Well, I traveled through the reservations at night, but I haven't been out on foot alone at night on the reservation. I think I've followed the advice of several who told me not to be. Are
you Native American?
No.
Okay, I was curious. All right, if there was rift between the different cultures as well on that, but you felt not a good idea to be out of the car. Have you ever seen anything while you've just been traveling along in the confines of your own vehicle?
No, I can't say that I have. I mean, I keep an eye out, and I try to remain alert and aware as to what's going on around me, but I've never seen or experienced anything.
All right. Well, thank you for giving us a call and listening into the show tonight, Vic.
Thanks, Vic.
Yep. And then we've got another call. That's what Ralph in North Pennsylvania has done. Ralph, welcome to the show. And what's your question or topic you'd like to discuss with J.C. Johnson?
Hey, good evening, gentlemen. Love the show, Dave.
Thank you very much.
J.C., I'm fascinated by sightings and reports of relic reptiles, like contemporary sightings of little tiny dinosaurs and things in the Southwest. I believe you've reported on those before. And I was wondering if you could give some detail as to what exactly people are seeing. And I was also wondering how far back do these reports go?
I think one of the most active situations would be what I would call the mini T-Rex. And they're found along the San Juan River Valley and the Animas River Valley going up into Colorado, up around Cortez and Durango and those areas. And this is something that is well seen among Caucasians as well as Native Americans. It's a very broad spectrum of sightings, and they're between 3 and 5 feet tall, and typically it seems as if they're pack animals, and I would be more along the lines of thinking there's some type of velociraptor or something of that nature. The mini T-Rex, once again, is just an umbrella description for probably 3 to 4 different type of upright walking lizards. So it's a phenomenon. So when you've got an umbrella description like that, there's probably several different kinds of upright walking lizards involved. But typically, the mini T-Rex would be something of a velociraptor, and they've been seen in packs moving around and crossing roads and things of that nature, daylight and at nighttime. So it's a reoccurring theme out here.
Are we seeing, JC, physical proof afterwards? Do we see tracks left in mud banks or?
I haven't personally been on the scene to see something like that, but I've taken the witness documentations and what they saw and where they were and what was happening and what these creatures were up to at the time. And it's a really wide-ranging variety of sightings among, once again, Caucasian and Native American people. And I've also heard reports where, if we've got missing people and missing hunters, and you'll never find a stitch or a jargon left of them or a piece of flesh because they've been taken apart by one of these packs of mini T-Rexes.
All right, Ralph, did you have any other follow-up questions?
Yeah, do the Native Americans have a tradition of seeing these? I was wondering how far back these sightings go.
It's deeply rooted in the culture, but then when you go far enough back, it becomes a mythology kind of thing. As far as them talking about them as an actual upright walking lizard, you get into the weird stuff. If you see a mini T-Rex, there's a consequence with the Dene, the Navajo out here in the Southwest. You'll turn to stone. If you see Yeetzo, Bigfoot, you'll die a year later. Every weird thing out here with the Dene, the Navajo, has a consequence attached to it. So if I was them, I would do everything I could to look the other way, not have full-on contact with this weird stuff, because there's a consequence to it. If you see the lizard woman, your heart will stop, or you will turn to stone. I mean, there's consequences in the oral tradition with the Dene out here involved with every strange thing that's going on.
All right.
All right. Thank you very much, Ralph. I appreciate that. Do you find in a lot of the cross cultures, the different Native American tribes, do they have similar characters, but that have separate and totally different personalities? I mean, are there versions of Sasquatch or aliens that, or not aliens, but reptiles that are very kind and loving and nurturing in one tribe, but to another tribe they're warlike and terrifying?
Well, yeah, so in most of your Native American depictions of the furry people, the Sasquatch, Bigfoot, if you will, they call them stone giants, they call them cannibals, they call them kidnappers, they call them all kinds of different things in their oral traditions that we're able to record. And, once again, when we go back to the furry people, I'm well aware that they take children. I'm also well aware that they rescue children and bring children within 100 feet of their camp when they've been out lost. And the same precipice where they would eat someone, I'm also aware of the fact that they picked up a Hopi man out of a canyon who had his leg broken 3 places, carried him up to a cave, set his leg, fed him, watered him, carried him out when he was well enough. I mean, you've got so many different variations of these furry people. And I think a lot of that comes down to culture and comes down to clans and comes down to where they're coming from, that type of deal. As if I was going to be transported into the 1870s in the Southwest, I would probably prefer running into a clan of Dene Navajo. If I'm polite to them, they're not going to gut me from, belly to eyeball with a dull antler. They'll probably have me over for fry bread and some stew, There's some other hostile tribes I'd probably not want to run into in the 1870s, and that is a cultural thing. And that's probably what's going on with a lot of these furry people, is a cultural thing where they're a cannibal culture, and this is what they do, or they're this type of culture or that type of culture. It comes down to that.
Heidi on my Facebook popped up with, what creature has really upset you or scared you the most? Is there something that's really made you uncomfortable? And have you encountered something that has not been able to be contained?
Well, number one, I mean, if I could contain all of these things, it would be on the cover of Nat Geo and Time Magazine and everything else.
Sure, but I mean, one that, that you physically have seen and have tried to contain, not one that you've just set a trap for, I guess.
I would think at this point, probably the most disturbing as far as not just one family being involved in these winged entities is the actual gargoyle night stalker. This is something that's been under my saddle for a while, and personally, I'd like to have some closure on that. I really would. I'm not aware of any immediate deaths or anything of that nature, but on my top 10 is the gargoyle night stalker demonic entity thing. This, if I can kill it, I want to.
Quite a few people, Rick, Kevin, Suzanne, have emailed me, texted me here on Facebook, wanting to know, JC, has there ever been claims of these cryptids trying to mate with any humans?
We go back to a lot of the Native American lore and legends and so forth, and even Franciscan monks out here in the 1760s through the 1770s, they made note of a few different things. One of them was 2 Pueblo women were kidnapped by, the hairy people, and they were gone for about a year or so. And the women finally learned the habits of the males. They would leave the island. They were on an island in the San Juan River. And they would leave the island, and they would go hunt and so forth. So when they learned their patterns, they figured they had, like a 2 or 3 hour window to split, and they did. And they ran, and they ran, and they ran. And they even ran into some enemy Native Americans. Once they told them their story, they gave them safe passage back to their people. They both eventually gave birth to children, and I guess they looked normal enough type deal. But, this was something the Franciscan monks wrote down. The Franciscan monks also wrote down an area. There's a village up by Zuni called Where the Giant Stepped. Literally, that was the name of the village. And it was abandoned, and the Franciscan monk made note of it. Why is this village abandoned? And at the time, the Sasquatch people were organized enough to take on this giant cliff dwelling of people, go to war with them, and win. And a very few people escaped to tell the story.
JC, we've got some more calls ringing in. Alex in Colorado, welcome to the show. What's your question?
So, JC, I was just watching a video of yours from back in 2012, the Night Stalkers, and I was just wondering, have you found anything else out about that? Or any other?
Yes, we haven't. You know, I was talking about this earlier. It's not so much something available in Navajo lore, but these gargoyle-type entities have been around for about the last 100 years. And they're rather troublesome. They are rather troublesome.
And
I understand.
Go ahead, Alex.
I said, I understand. I'm listening. I'm just trying to pick your brain and figure out if you found anything else out about them.
We've seen a lot more of their evidence. We've seen a lot more of their 3-clawed tracks, 4-clawed tracks, and more evidence of people having seen something of this nature. In fact, one of our crew, George Harvey, saw something last night that I've yet to investigate. I have to get out there and talk with him and try to put together what he saw. But he saw something on top of his roof, very large, with a very large wingspan when it took off. And this is something we're going to follow up on and get some more information on. And also, back at the Night Stalker family, the original Night Stalker investigation, the same thing last night. We had something smack into they've got a slump block home, and something smacked into the home really hard and left these tracks and these claw marks out in the dirt. So this is just some more follow-up. But we've had other sightings of this type entity in a tree, in the crotch of a tree, up on a bluff, up on a mesa, and they jump and they fly. And they've got human-type appendages as far as the face and potentially hands or claws mixed up with the wings.
All right. Thank you for calling in, Alex. We appreciate that as well. We've got Francine online. Welcome to the show, Francine.
Hi, JC. Hi, Dave.
Hey.
JC, it's Francine. Hi, sweetheart. Hey, 2 questions for you, and then I'll take it off the air. The girl that's been being attacked with the Skinwalker case, has she had any more of the night terrors and the physical attacks to her? And then once you're done with that, can you give us a little update on the Navajo warriors? What was it that turned them away from, I know that they really got into, not just being rangers for the nation, but they got into the paranormal end of it. And I heard scuttlebutt that something happened where they stepped back and said, we're not going to do this anymore. So if you can get me on those, I'll listen on there. Thanks, you guys. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Francine.
Okay, so I believe you're talking about Amelia in the Skinwalker?
Yeah, the original case with the night terrors and everything. She was wondering if that has continued on and if there's any...
Going back to the Night Stalker investigation then.
Right.
Potentially, the best thing that happened is they didn't put the cornfield up the next year. They left the field barren, and that didn't give them leeway to fly in, land in the field unannounced, and have cover and come out. That was a smart thing to do, is leave the corn off of that side of the house. That was a big plus. And then Rhonda essentially moved to Albuquerque, and it does seem that she was the object of their attention. So that slowed everything down, too. So what happened last night is kind of a strange thing. And we had just one of our associates that was home alone in the house today when we went and talked to him. But I guess a good part of the family was home last night when this thing showed up. So I'm going to get out there when they're back home and get some more information. As far as talking about the Rangers, we've got John Dover, who was a Navajo Ranger for 31 years. With the blessing of the Navajo tribe, he's been doing lectures and probably some television appearances and everything else, talking about all the strange, bizarre, and unusual things that happened to him as a Navajo Ranger for 31 years. And I haven't heard much about him lately, but he was talking about UFO sightings, multiple people involved in UFO sightings, multiple people involved in Bigfoot sightings where we had actual picnics and things of that nature where, up to a dozen or more people saw the strange, bizarre, and unusual entities going on. He was also talking about some Skinwalker situations where he grabbed the hind legs of a dog and pulled the dog out from under the fence, and the dog turned back into a person all painted up with spots. Some really strange things with John Dover. Haven't heard much out of him lately. I hope they're still out there talking about what happened to them while they served under the Navajo Nation.
Does there seem to be, I mean, you know, you hear about these creatures on the reservations themselves. Obviously, these creatures seem to transcend just the reservation property, but why do they seem to stick with harassing of the Native American culture, and why aren't they, you know, especially, I would guess that these creatures had a wider range when the Native Americans were spread out and not forced into reservation territories. Why are the white man not being more harassed by these beings?
Typically, what we're seeing here, too, and then we go back to the Skinwalker genre, and the Skinwalker serving evil after they come back from incarceration. There's no real good medicine available on the reservation, very far and few between. You used to go see a medicine man, he'd give you a tea or an herb for your cough or your cold or pneumonia. Whatever you had, he had a cure for, you know, and it was natural, herbalistic type things that were going on from the good Lord, God's pharmacy. And now it's more along the lines of hocus pocus, mumbo jumbo. Somebody put a curse on you, pay me, I'll lift the curse. I'm not going to tell you, I'm probably the one who put the curse on you in the first place. It's a double jeopardy situation, but it's become a position where we don't have any good medicine on the reservation anymore. It's just hocus pocus, mumbo jumbo, curses, lifting curses. And when we get the Skinwalker, you know, a really interesting thing. Some years ago, we helped film a pilot for a sci-fi program that's rather popular right now. And it kind of centered around Skinwalkers. And it was an area where a young man was attacked by a Skinwalker at the age of 14. And luckily, this guy had been at the gym, learning boxing. Pretty stout little dude. And this thing beat the hell out of him. But he was able to get away from it, punching it back and fighting back. And he got away and was able to tell us his story. Out there was a church, and there was an old lady there attached to the church, keeping an eye on things. And it turns out she was the grandmother of this young man who had been attacked by a Skinwalker. We're out there with Chief Dan, and Chief Dan, being the polite Navajo gentleman that he is, went up and said, "Yate," you know, and shook hands with her and introduced himself and so forth, because she wouldn't talk to anyone else. And she was just watching all the stuff that was going on with the film crew, the sound and all that. And she goes, "You know, my daughter has this thing going on with this Skinwalker that attacked my grandson." She says, "I want to tell you a story." And this woman had been given a prayer request to come out and pray with this family. And she was afraid because she knew the activity of this family and knew what kind of people they were. And they were practicing witches and Skinwalkers. And she gets there. She's going to go do it anyway. It's a request. She knocks on the front door. They let her in. There's an old man in the middle of a bear rug. And on either side of him are two other guys, and they're younger. And she goes, "Who am I supposed to pray for?" She goes, the lady that let her in said, "The old man in the middle." She went and introduced herself. And he sat up. He said, "I'm dying. I'm going to be dead in a few days. And I've been doing this for many years. And I want to be with your God. I don't want to go where I know I'm going. I want to pray the sinner's prayer." So she prayed with him. And while she's praying with the guy, one of the guys on the rug with him, she saw his hand physically turn into a claw. And she saw these guys basically fighting back a physical transformation while she's visiting with this old man. Finally, the old man says, "Go do what you were paid to do. I'm not going with you anymore." And they took off like lightning. She said, that fast. And the old man, he died about 2 or 3 days later. But she saw a physical transformation happening with these men, with the old man on the rug. There's something physically transforming with this practice, this deep, dark witchery.
And do you believe that that's what it is? Do you believe that it is witchcraft in a sense?
Oh, absolutely.
That allows people to transform?
Demonic.
Okay.
In nature. And you go into the Caucasian situation where we deal with weirs out here. And we have practicing weirs actually in the Four Corners and Farmington area, and it's more of a Caucasian thing. And they like to go out and hunt when they shift. And I don't think they're real particular about what they end up hunting and eating, and it could be people on the menu. And I won't go there, but that seems to be the case in that situation. But no, it's witchery, it's witchcraft, it's demonic. I'm sorry. We're not all going to get together,
holding hands with werewolves and skinwalkers and sing Kumbaya. It's not going to happen, guys.
Do you believe, near Montauk and some other areas, there are believed to be some genetically engineered creatures. Do you believe that some of these are genetically modified humans, genetically modified animals, blended? What do you think their
I think that's
basics are?
If that's not already underway, but most of the things we're dealing with have a long history out here, well before our technology, well before we've got potential underground bases in Dulce, New Mexico, and things of that nature. We've got well over 700 to 1,000 years of the furry people being out here, being akin and accustomed to the natives of the area. So that's long before any kind of technology, at least that we have at this time, is available. And a lot of these other different things. But as far as chimeras and things like that, I do believe that stuff is going on. And we have to go back to where I'm coming from with the genetic manipulations at the time of the Watchers and the early part of us as humanity, the genetic manipulation that was going on. Jesus said, so as in the days of Noah will be the time of the returning of the Son of Man. And the genetic manipulation that is most potentially going on right now, as it was going on back in the days of Noah, are going on presently.
Do you believe, just throwing this as a thought, do you believe that the story of Noah really didn't contain necessarily basic animals? Do you believe that those animals may have in fact been skinwalkers? That's what allowed them all to live and coexist aboard a ship for 40 days and 40 nights without utter destruction and mayhem, and allow for, the weight of all of those different beasts and creatures and how to feed them? Do you think there might be a fact that truthfully what they were shapeshifters, skinwalkers?
I think the more incredible part of the story is you had to find two of each kind of animal that hadn't been corrupted by the Watchers and their DNA manipulations. That's what's going on.
Strange stuff. Got a few minutes left together here. What would you really like people to focus on with your research? And they could find your page over at YouTube under J.C. Johnson. What are some of the things that you're really keying into to investigate right now and you think are kind of fascinating forefronts for where the cryptozoological field is going?
Well, and we're going to break with it shortly, and I did touch on that briefly in a program the other night. We are involved with Dr. Jeffrey Meldrum's new DNA study. And we have several samples in from the Four Corners area as far as the Sasquatch.
Mm-hmm.
We are involved in that, so keep an eye on that. That's going to be interesting, and hopefully we don't have an agenda-driven situation. The psych study was completely disappointing. And going back to Dr. Melba Ketchum's study that we're involved in for 5 years, I think hopefully the results will be mirrored in the original study with Dr. Meldrum's study. And we do have modern human ancestry involved with these furry people. And that really doesn't sit right from the viewpoint of somebody who would follow anthropology or humanology as far as going along with the program.
Hey, what's going on with what's going on with the doctor? She was running so many of the tests. Melba Ketchum.
Dr. Melba, I feel terrible for her because she lost her DNA diagnostics laboratory. She lost everything professionally. And she used to be able to appear before the Texas court system as an expert DNA witness. She's excellent in that. And because she's involved in this Bigfoot paper, this Bigfoot thing, she's no longer a credible representative for the Texas court system. So even that part of the income's gone for her at this point. So, I mean, it's terrible. And, God bless her.
What a shame. Total shame. Yeah. Well, thank you very much for joining us, JC, this evening and sharing some insights with us and some of the stories and the research that you're doing on that. We wish you a very Merry Christmas, and we'll look forward to talking to you sometime.
You guys have a great night. God bless you.
You too. Thank you so much for joining us.
So there you go, your final encore presentation for the week. J.C. Johnson, the Indiana Jones of the paranormal, takes you on a little bit of an adventure, tells you a little bit about skinwalkers, tells you a little bit about Bigfoot and Sasquatch, and tells you also that he goes out into the woods armed. A man after my own heart. Not that I go around shooting animals or anything like that, just that you have to be prepared, folks. So when you go out into the woods, You're prepared. You're going to defend yourself. You don't go out there without, protection. At least that's what they told me in health class. I don't know about you people. Animals. Anyways, so that's the show for this week. Dave will be back on Monday, and we'll be doing an episode of Supernatural News. I should finish that sentence. Parashare and Supernatural News. That's coming up Monday, and of course, we're fastly approaching our 12th anniversary. 12th, Dave. 12th anniversary. Not 13th. Dave would say, we're going on 13 years. That's like calling a 12-year-old at the minute he turns 12, going on 13 years. We're not. We're 12. We're 12 years old. On January 1st, 2018, we started January 1st, 2006. So we're 12. I'm going to hammer that point home because he'll get control of this mic and tell you we're 13. We're not. We're 12. There you go. 12. That's coming up Monday. Parashare Supernatural News will ring in the new year and start a brand new year, 2018. We hope yours is happy and healthy and that you have a very safe New Year's Eve celebration. We know we will here as well. Don't drink and drive. Don't drink and text. No distracted driving. No drunk driving, please. We want everybody to get home safe and enjoy this 2018. Have a happy, healthy, prosperous new year. We hope the very best for you in 2018. And again, we want to remind you to ring in the new year as well with our True Crime Tuesday over on Patreon. Be sure to give the gift of True Crime Tuesday to a loved one or get it for yourself. Just $5 a month by going to darknessradio.com. Click on the banner that says True Crime Tuesday and start out 2018 right on the good foot. Be sure to subscribe to True Crime Tuesday over on Patreon. And be sure to get all of our shows, not just Beyond the Darkness, but True Crime Tuesday as well. Comes out every Tuesday. You'll have access to all of our archives of even 2017 on forward. There are full 37 episodes over there of True Crime Tuesday, and you'll get everything from 2018 forward as well. So there you go. A little gift for yourself as you move forward into the new year. For Dave Schrader, I'm Tim Dennis. We'll see you in 2018, everybody. Have a great day, and Happy New Year.